Welcome to this week's episode of Embodied Divinity, where I'm interviewing the amazing Laura Ashley, who is a healer, alchemist, and coach who works with the Akashic Records to give you guidance and clarity in life. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Embodied Divinity. I just told you all about this beautiful soul, Laura, sitting in front of me today. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Me too. And I have to ask you our signature question every time. So tell us, Laura, how did you become the woman sitting in front of us today?
Oh my goodness. I feel like we could have a whole podcast episode just on that one question. Wow. I've always been on the healer's pathway from a very, very young age, and the events in my life have led me to where I am today, which without getting too in depth of that, let's just say I'm a Pluto dominant. So I have been through multiple rebirths in my lifetime following the shaman's path. There is nothing that I haven't really faced or walked along my journey that has really given me unique opportunities to understand myself at deeper layers and also my past, but then being able to take those experiences and help the clients and the people that I help, right? I'm getting a really high pitch buzz in my ear right now. Sorry, just my guides.
I love it.
Um,
That's
so yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I think it's really beautiful the way to so many light workers, healers, mentors come on the show. And it's like life has been their greatest teacher. And it's by allowing that like life happening through them that's really created who they are today. And I'm wondering, like, is there something that came through to you? I know you work with Akashic Records and I want to get more into that, but is there like a specific thing that you knew as you were going through life that, like, for me it was always like, this is happening for a reason, there's a bigger story here? Was there something like that, like a knowing within you?
Yeah, there was always something like that within me. And for me, I'm really good at recognizing patterns in my life. So I can like spot something and be like, okay, this is a repetitive pattern. And then I can usually trace that back to the point of origin of when it began in this particular lifetime. But I also love doing that and going deeper through the Akashic records and finding it like in other lifetimes or in my records themselves, right? So yeah, I feel that. Um it's interesting how those experiences give us the energies to or that like sort of shape us in ways too,
Yeah.
pull us through. Um, yeah. I feel like I could go into way more depth, but I also feel like we would be here forever.
No, I mean, I feel like it's beautiful the way that you described it. And I want to ask you a couple questions in one. So number one, for anyone who's listening today, can you tell us what the Akashic records are? But then I'd love for you to follow with how you even got into this knowing that you could access Akashic records and use them as guidance.
Yeah, okay. So for anyone who's not familiar, the Akashic records are usually described as like a cosmic library. When I read the records, I can actually see and feel the energy or of the records that you brought in, like where they're stored in your body too, which is really cool. And it holds you could also imagine it like a Google search engine too, right? Of like going in and just Googling, like, why does this pattern keep happening, right? Or like, what is the origin of this situation? Or what is my connection with so and so, right? And then go through and look at all the different contracts and oaths and things like that, the past lives, the ties. It's a really amazing field to work from. I often also kind of said that it was like understanding the spiritual terms and conditions that we agree to. You know, like when you're on a website and you have to agree, like when you're signing up for something and you're just like, I'm not even reading this, but I'm just going to click yes and say, okay, I agree. Right. And then you get here and you're on earth and you're like, holy, like, what did I agree to? Right. And
Yes.
so the records is going in and being like, oh, okay, that's what it was, or that's the lesson there. Right. That's what I came to see or to learn. Right. So I find that really interesting. Um, sorry, can you repeat what was the second part of
Yeah.
that question?
How did you even like know this was something you could do
Oh, yeah.
and
Okay.
why?
Okay, so back in 26, I want to say, I mean, the records had always been kind of like calling me, kind of like a deep pull, like in my mind, like not even really knowing what it was, but like hearing the words repeated, like as if it was some sort of like message of like, this is where you need to go. And of course, I mean, I was living life. I kind of ignored it. It was like, whatever, right? Like I'm busy doing other things. So it was always something that really called to me and pulled me. So finally, I started to go into it. And it was around 2016. When they started to get so loud. I couldn't ignore it anymore. It was just impossible. And it was at that point in time too that I was having kind of like a shadow moment or a dark night of the soul kind of thing. I had been involved in a car accident, and in the span of like 3 months I had lost pretty much everything, relationships, health, myself, like all of that. And so that's like when the records just were like, you need to go in, you need to work with this energy and go through. And so that's kind of like what led me into that. And I started reading books on the subject, watching videos, tapping in, utilizing my own knowledge. And then I'm a course junkie. So I started taking courses. I think I've taken like 3 or 4 different Akashic courses just because the field is so vast and I want to know as much as I humanly can. Anything you can cram into my brain, right? Like I just want to know it all.
Oh, that's so cool, and I love that you followed it. You followed that urge because you so not easily, but you could have silenced it, right? And I love that you followed it. So today I asked you to talk about the divine feminine and masculine, and I know from our conversation previously you got kind of a cool message for our collective here today. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So because the whole concept of divine feminine energy and divine masculine energy and union and all of that stuff is just so vast. I wanted to kind of go into the records and be like, what would be the most potent or powerful for people to hear from this today? And they came back, and when it's interesting because the first vision or thing that I saw when I got in there into the records was this like giant ethereal, but they really wanted me to use the word celestial like entities of the energies themselves. So there's like this celestial feminine energy, which I think a lot of people would refer to that as like the divine Sophia, right? The Holy Spirit, the divine Sophia, this beautiful feminine energy, and then the masculine energy as well, which is just, just as powerful and just as awesome. And it's like these two incredible creative energies and forces is basically what made up the universe, right? The coming together of it. And we see trickles down of that through different ascended masters that have come and walked on earth, right? Like Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, right? We see those beautiful polarities being presented to us. But it was really cool because when I tapped into them, they really wanted me to get across this metaphor, this image. And I've been told my analogies are like amazing and I could write a book on just on my analogies. So hopefully this helps people in some way or it resonates for someone out there listening. But they wanted me to kind of explain it as the divine feminine energy is the bow. We know that, and the masculine energy would be the arrow. So if we take a look at the bow and the arrow, right? The bow holds and shapes, it directs the arrow. It's that vessel, the container through which the masculine can move, right? The masculine energy is that action. So when the bow pulls back, the arrow can fly. And I feel like that's such an incredible metaphor or analogy for how we can work with that internal energy, because every single person has access to the divine feminine, the divine masculine. Like gender doesn't really, come into play with this energy at all. It doesn't matter. We can leave that at the door because we're both working with these incredible polarities, and that through which the union of those polarities is through what we are able to create and manifest on earth now and what we're building around us, and also how we move through the world and interact with other people.
It's so incredible, and I just have to call out a couple of synchronicities really quick.
Okay, cool.
Number 1, your episode that is airing, right? The week before, we had, like, a Divine Sophia channel come on.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was really cool that you said that. And then we've been talking about like Jesus and Mary Magdalene for weeks on this
Yeah.
podcast. And then number two, I am an avid archer. Like I practice archery.
Oh, wow.
And so when you told me earlier about this metaphor, I was like, no way. I just think it's so cool the way that spirit uses these different analogies, but also like as confirmation of like this divine connection that we're experiencing here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
a
It's so
question came up
beautiful.
a question that came up from like my archer brain too is like, so there's so much that goes into that perfect pull of the arrow, right? It's like you have to breathe, you ground, you're in this really beautiful posture, which means you've checked in with yourself, you've checked in with your body, and you're giving it this pullback and kind of like oomph to go forward. How would you say the divine feminine within us, how do we access that and kind of create that perfect like vessel to be able to move the arrow in the right direction?
I feel like you kind of already answered that when you talk about like you did. You were like grounding into your body, feeling grounded, feeling secure, knowing, it's that inner trust and the faith and knowing that what you're putting out there is, what needs to be put out there. Right. And I really feel that for people that are utilizing that feminine energy, it is about receivership, right? But it's also about, I'm gonna try and find the words because sometimes my words, the information comes in and then it gets all jumbled in my brain. Um, but it's like, sorry, I'm gonna have to sit with this for a minute.
That's great. All in your timing.
Okay. Sorry, everyone. um, okay. Let's see how we can put this out. It's like stepping into a space of stability and security within yourself where you're not allowing the wounded feminine energy to drive or run the show. So it's kind of like when you are talking about your manifestations, right? And like when we're manifesting, if we hold on so tightly to those manifestations, we completely block anything from coming to us, right? And so it's the same kind of thing when we're in our, when we're looking at what kind of energy we're sitting in. If we're in a space of codependency and, that, then what comes back to us isn't going to be what we're wanting. So there's this need to really understand yourself and your shadows with self compassion, of course, right? Which I think is a really big thing because a lot of us don't tap into that. We're so hard on ourselves. But understanding through self compassion why those things are arising or, whatever those issues are that are coming up. And then releasing them and surrendering to that and knowing that you are completely 100% supported and that you are the vessel of creation.
Mm,
Right?
yeah,
So I really do feel like it's a softening, and softening isn't weakness.
right.
It just means to soften into the experience, to
Yeah.
surrender, to know that you are supported, to know that you are held, right?
I just got chills when you said that because okay, to bring it back again to the bow and arrow, right? When you're pulling back the arrow and you're going to shoot it, like the key is this hand up here that's holding the bow. You
Yeah.
don't want to grip it with your hand. You want it to be loose and just let it rest in the palm. And so many people will grip it to hold it tight and it messes up their thing. And so it's in that softening of like relaxed surrender and pulling it back and breathing and seeing the arrow go where you want it, knowing
Yeah.
it's going to go there. And as you release, it's like this exhale and letting
Yeah.
go. And it's just like when you were saying that, it was just like it all came in like full circle of just like, we just gotta let it go and
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool too, because even when you were saying that, like when you pull the arrow back, but like in your mind, you already know where it's going to end up. right? Like, and that's why people can shoot and hit the target with their eyes closed because of the faith, the direction. They know they can see where it's going, even with their eyes closed.
Mm.
Right? So it's like this incredible trust moment. And you can see how the energies, even in that example, the masculine and feminine, how they work so well together, right? And how you can't have one without the other. How would the bow get to the target? Or sorry, how would the arrow get to the target without the bow? Right? You know, each one is dependent upon the other and they work in beautiful unison.
So I love that we're talking about this really beautiful internal divine union, right? Between feminine and masculine. But we just finished Love Month, one of my favorite months. And there's a lot of people that are either really deepening into their relationships or kind of in that like heartbreak, like they haven't either, they either don't have their love still, so they just experienced this love month and just really focused on self, right? Or a lot of people break up in love month too. And so it's like, can we talk about the gendered masculine and gendered feminine with these energies, and if maybe just speaking right now towards the feminine that is looking to embody more of that feminine nature and bring that to call in that divine masculine counterpart.
Yeah. Oh, again, I've got to go back to surrender and I've got to go back into softness and into attraction because the divine feminine does not chase.
Yeah.
She knows who she is. She knows what she is worthy of. She has done the inner work. She has her boundaries up, right?
Yeah.
She knows exactly the kind of, and let's use the jet, since we'll say this, we'll say the man, right? Or whoever it is, okay? Right? She knows the type of person that will truly complement her. So
Mm.
a lot of that is surrendering. But what happens is for us, and I've seen this a lot in clients as well, and in myself and friends, and you know, it's part of the human experience of the journey, but we can get a little too tightly focused on one specific person or relationship
Yeah.
that we block out all the blessings that are trying to come our way.
Yeah.
And so that's where we want to step away from the wounded feminine of the codependency and this whole idea of, and this is a thing that is really powerful for a lot of feminines, for a lot of women. We tend to, because we are the caretakers, we're the nurturers, we tend to avoid our own pain by looking at the needs of others.
Mm.
Okay, so when I am in partnership in my, say, wounded state, if I am in partnership with a man, I would be looking at that person to fix their problems, to nurture them, whereas the man in his wounded is looking for a mother to nurture him because he doesn't want to deal with his own pain, right? So it's avoidance for him and his pain. And it's the same thing for the feminine. It's the avoidance of the pain that she's feeling, thinking that by taking care of someone else, it takes care of her pain, right?
Mm.
And so when you understand that dynamic, that it's really, you know, an avoidance of dealing with your own crap, your own stuff, right? Then it becomes very easy to come back to the situation and look at what it is that you're truly avoiding. And then once you look at what you're truly avoiding, that's when you step into and you're like, oh yeah, I'm not doing codependency anymore. I'm sovereign. I'm a divine person, right?
Yeah.
I'm ready to go into the next phase of partnership with somebody who can match me at that level vibrationally.
Yeah. I love that. So I want to get personal with myself for a moment.
Yeah.
So
Let's do it.
for so long, I attracted number one, just really terribly abusive relationships. And then I attracted very deeply feminine men. Like I thought I was being feminine, but then they would come in and they would want me to like provide and plan the dates and take the initiative. And so the last 2 years, I've just totally focused on myself. And I did this meditation about a year ago. And when I was meditating, I saw myself like rise as the oracle, and I saw like my beloved, which came in like the figure of like source, and I said, I I want to be protected and provided for, and I will rise in my like feminine, my oracle nature. And so there was this deep power to it.
Yes.
But there's also this premise in the world, and I know this because it's so silly, but I posted a reel like 6 months ago, okay, about just like the divine feminine being able to attract a man and you don't have to go out there and look for it. And it was like something about like, I'm not going to leave my house. I'm just going to like be open to this. And there were tens of thousands of comments about just women saying like they're surrendered in that state. And so many thousands of men just saying that they're never going to find a man that way. And it led me to this deepening of like, how can we women, feminines, be in such deep trust and surrender and kind of keep that faith when we're not seeing the desires of our heart manifest right away? Like, how did you deepen into your own feminine trust? And even with the Akashic Records, it takes a deep level of trust, right? How did
Yeah.
you deepen that?
Well, trust is definitely one of my lessons of this lifetime. And I'm going to preface this by saying that like, yeah, I don't have it all figured out either. Okay. And I think it's just like everything else in life, so cyclical. So you'll go through moments where you'll feel like really on your game, and then you'll go through moments where there are lessons that come up, and then you're like, okay, is something another layer for me to look at, right? So I would go back into I work a lot with, and I don't know if you've talked about it on the show. Have you guys done a lot of like law of assumption or Neville Goddard?
No.
Okay.
Please tell us all the things.
Everything. Okay, so I'll do like a really kind of like brief thing.
Cool.
Um, law of assumption states basically that everyone is you pushed out. And there's different variations of this. And obviously, this whole podcast isn't on that or anything like that. But one of the things that I love the most about that is that it also teaches you not to rely on 3D feedback to tell you that your manifestations aren't actually happening.
Yes.
Okay. So many times people look for things that confirm their beliefs that they already had. So if I'm walking around with a belief that I'm never going to find a man, you bet your ass I'm going to be reinforcing that every single place I go.
Yes.
Right? No matter what is coming up, if that is the belief that I'm walking through life with, the universe is going to be like, all right, girl, we got you. This is what you want to move through life with. Okay, here we go. Right. So when you switch that assumption to not every man's like that, because that's the truth. Not every man is like that.
Yeah.
Right. And if that's every man that you're attracting, then we need to turn the, like the mirror inwards to be like, okay, well, what wounded part of myself is attracting that and calling that in. Right. And I'm not doing that to, I don't want to be like bypassing or anything like that, because I know there's real issues around the world and things like that. But when we have a belief like that, it comes from a wounded place that gets reinforced. Right.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
yeah, I would just tell women to, like, you can have it. We can do all that. You just have to do the inner work. You have to look at your self concept. Right. And shifts can happen. And even an idea of like, you won't meet anyone if you don't leave your house. I don't know if that's actually even true. That's a belief itself.
There were thousands of comments of women of like, my guy delivered a package to my door and we've been married for 20 years. And so I was like, this is the kind of feedback, right? The kind of feedback loop. But I love what you said, because like, that's what I shifted in my reality. I started following all these very conscious men in their healthy masculine energy just on social media, just so I could see, because I never knew what it looked like.
Yeah,
Right?
you get a taste of that energy, a taste of that template.
Right.
And then you can go in and kind of like reorganize your internal energetic systems and structures, right? Through your thought process. And then you're like, oh, yeah, wait a minute. This is what it looks like. And that at the end of the day is what is repatterning, right? Like, I just think that's so cool that we have the ability to actually do that on this planet.
Yeah.
In real time.
It's incredible. But I mean, it does take, like you said, and I know the reason that like you kind of we talk about this trauma, we talk about the things that are actually happening, but in the end, as much as it hurts, it does come back to what are you choosing to focus on? And it's
Yeah.
like it's not invalidating your trauma. Like God
Exactly.
knows we've both had our share of trauma,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's not letting that trauma define our future.
And that's exactly it. And that's actually, it's so interesting that you say that because I'm dealing with another kind of like little issue right now, health issue. And that's the exact approach that I'm going in with this. I'm a little bit delusional in the sense that it doesn't matter what things come back. This is not taking my life. I'm going to be living. I'm going to be doing all the work that I need to be doing, helping all the people I need to be doing, and all of that, right? You
Yeah.
kind of have to have that, that just incredible self-belief and self-concept, right?
Yeah.
It all comes back to that. Everything always comes back to the self-concept and how you think and feel and believe and what you believe about yourself.
I love living in delusion. I'm all for it. I'm like, it's how I created everything that I have.
Right? I love that. I really, really love that.
Yeah. So, how everything we're talking about, tell me, how do you use the Akashic records with your clients to like how do they benefit from what you do?
Yeah. So everyone is so, you know, different in the sense, which is why it's really cool to go into the records because there's usually what I like to do is whatever issue somebody is coming to me with, I like to go into the records and find the point of origin of it. So when did it actually begin? Did it begin in this lifetime? Did it begin in a past lifetime? Was there a contract there? What kick-started this? Is it along the ancestral line, right? Were you your own ancestor, right? You've come back now into this line to bookmark it and clear it all out. So there's always different ways to kind of like look at or like what's happening, but I always really like to go in and find the point of origin for whatever that issue is to like do the deep clearing, the stuff
Yeah.
that makes a difference, right?
So what can they expect to experience in a session with you? What is that
Yeah.
like?
So I have a couple of different sessions that I do. I do relationship sessions. I do spirit guide sessions where I talk with your guides and tell you all about them. And those are actually really fun to do because some guides they're hilarious. But I also just do like my standard sessions, and through those sessions, an open session, somebody can come with me with all of their questions of things that they're experiencing, and then I just go in and say, what needs to be kind of explored. Sometimes it'll be past lifetimes that come through. Sometimes it's galactic lifetimes that come through. It really depends on that individual person. And we'll like to look at things like soul origins or starseed origins, look at soul gifts, things that they've come in. The lessons are also really important and validating for people, especially when we look at how close that lesson is to completion, right? I feel like that can be really, really helpful for people just to get a clear idea of like where they actually are on their soul trajectory kind of thing. And then that just helps them move forward with that awareness, right? I always say the awareness brings the healing. So that's the biggest thing that the records offer when we do a reading, right? As opposed to working, like doing energy work. But when we do the readings bring awareness. So it's whatever kind of awareness it is that you or your higher self really wants to come through and bring to you. And it can be on anything, right? Not really, like really when you work in the records, nothing is off limits. They will bring anything and everything up. Things that you think are not even like, important or meaningful in there. If they are, they come through.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. And like you guys heard at the beginning, you can reach Laura, Ashley, and all of her links below. Wherever you're listening to or watching this, you can see everything that she has to offer. So, Laura, before we wrap up, I would love to just hear, do you have anything that you're feeling called to share with this collective as kind of like a final goodbye message?
It's really weird because sometimes spirit comes through in song lyrics. So all I'm hearing right now is Florence and the Machines, like you gotta love. And there's this like feeling coming through of like empowerment. So I don't know if there's people out there that are feeling that these wounds or these things are, they're so ingrained that they can't shift or they can't change.
Yeah.
Uh, that's not true. You can. Okay. I want people to leave feeling really empowered that change is possible, that living their favorite best life is possible. Like you said, delusion creates miracles, right?
It really
So I really feel like that's strongly out there. So if that's somebody listening, if you're, feeling like this is hard for you, I'm there. I get it. I know the challenge, but I also know your strength and you got this.
Mm, I
You
love
got the love.
And I'm also gonna link that song below this
Yes, let's
episode
do
so
it.
y'all can listen to it. Oh, thank you so much, Laura, for being on the show today. And do you want to just share with us as we finalize this episode every way that they can work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to find me, I think we'll put that there, but I'm indigo.soul.mastery on Instagram. Come hang out with me. You can find my Threads account, my bio site links there with all the links of, I do starseed reports and Akashic record readings and energy healing work and things like that. So that's all in there. So yeah, or you can send me an email, which I think we'll put the email address in there too.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I highly
Thank
encourage
you.
you, if you resonated with Laura's conversation today, check her out on the socials, check out all of her different offerings. And thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
You too. All right, everybody, breathe deep and plan on miracles. See you next time.